What's up, Ken?
Lars, there you are, my man. How are you?
I was just listening to you guys chat. One big happy family here.
All right. Okay, I think we can. I'm going to pin you to everybody's screen, Lars. Just give me a sec. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, it's 1 minute after. We've got quite a few people on the call already, which is awesome. Thanks to everybody for coming in. Okay, we're going to ask everybody to, number one, turn your cameras on because it's going to be a little bit interactive at the end. And number two, mute your microphones, just so we don't get any background noise. And I just want to welcome everybody to the add 2 to 3 deals to your month without cold calling or ad spend. And I want to introduce you guys to Lars Hedenborg, who is a renowned real estate #1 team leader, then went on to build a huge coaching business and is now giving away all of his secrets for free. He's also one of my strategic business partners, and I appreciate him so much. And just want to thank him so much for coming on today. So, Lars, without further ado, if you want to add to that and pump your own tires a little bit, give her.
I was going to say, you can just keep saying all the good things about me. I mean, talk about my ego being pumped up here. No, I can kind of roll with it if that's good. And you guys can just kind of throw in comments or questions as we go. Looks like a good sized group for interaction and questions and the focus here, and you'll kind of see it unfold is, and I prepared for this this morning, is we're going to start 30,000 foot view, and then we're going to get pretty much in the dirt by the end of it. So the warning there is that do not zone out in the beginning because you're like, this does not feel like it's for me. I've made all the mistakes you could possibly make in business, but I think when I see a common thread, and this is in three businesses at this point, 2 of them multiple 7-figure, one, over 3 million in revenue. The common thread was that I kind of always knew where I was going. So I always had a little bit of my mind space in the clouds, and building this sort of future version of my life and my business. And then I was always in the dirt, right? We're always doing shit every day that we don't want to do, so I think I kept my sanity in some regard, spending time in the clouds and then constantly, it's like you're running a big business. When I had little kids and you come home after slaying dragons all day and just doing all good things in business. And then your 1-year-old has a crappy diaper that you have to change. So that's kind of like business. We create these dreams and visions in our mind, and then we have to do the work that most people are not willing to do, and that's what makes this an awesome opportunity of real estate. And I still think it's one of the best opportunities that there possibly can be. Can you guys see my screen?
Thumbs up. Yeah, I can see it.
Yep. Awesome. All right, cool. All right. So I almost just stopped with the 2 to 3 deals. To get to 2 to 3 deals per month is stage 2 of 4 stages that I've taught. And like Ken said, I don't sell coaching. There could be an opportunity to work on this stuff together for free if you guys are into it. And we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But it's the same process to get to what I say 1 million GCI. So average, let's say an average $12,500 commission check is pretty average right now in the market. That's 80 transactions. So technically 3 per month would be 36, but it's the same process. So I'm going to go through 5 things today here that will hopefully really serve you. So 5 steps to become a $1 million agent in any market, any economic environment. And I was never a cold caller. I tried it once. I got pissed on pretty good by an expired guy that I did not have thick skin. I still don't have thick skin. So I'm more of a marketer, and I'll get into what that looks like, but no paid leads. I've done them. They're really hard now, way more so than 15, 20 years ago when I started with in real estate. And then no begging for referrals. So I've got systems around client care and generating business from business. So let's unpack the 5 things. So and we're going to start. Hang with me, please, please, please hang with me. We're going to start at the 30,000 foot view. So this is thinking like a business owner when it comes to leverage growth. Then we're going to talk about, I don't have to have everyone raise their hand if they think there's a changing business climate, but how to adapt your approach given the lightning speed changing business climate. And then we'll talk about filling your pipeline with warm, organic inbound leads that actually convert. That was my superpower of all superpowers, I would say, and continued to be in how I coached up agents to scale. And then we'll talk about, as you're getting busy, the tendency is to give away your life in the process. So we'll talk about filling your pipeline, bust the myth that you have to put in more hours to make more money. And then we'll talk about how do you put all this stuff together? Number 5, strategically implement tools, systems, and technology. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on me. I always like to see a picture of my boy. He is 6'4", on his way to college to play volleyball. And back in the day, you can see for any BlackBerry users, you can tell I was a little late to the game. I think iPhones just came out at that point, but I was still hardcore BlackBerry. But I sold 44 homes my first full year in real estate. 5 years later, I 10x the business. So basically, I built the systems to allow 10 producing agents in my market to run with the transaction part of the business, and I was more the architect. 5,000 plus families served in real estate. Founded a coaching company in 2013. Just wound that down legally, so I do not charge for coaching at this point. And Ken and I are kind of partnered up in giving it away for free at this point. And then 3,000 agents went through my paid coaching programs, and we have almost 3,000 agents that are in Agent Freedom Collective. And the operating system that we now teach, and you'll see I'm going to teach one part of it today. It's called Agent Freedom OS. So it's a systems-based approach to helping agents scale their business, but also their wealth. And I said it earlier, I'm not going to tell you all the 1,000 mistakes that I've made in my journey, but I promise you, to achieve anything in life, you certainly will make a bunch of mistakes. So no matter how you got here, there's no shame, no blame. We are just here at a starting point, and we all have unique skills and abilities to bring to bear. I did have a pretty jacked up childhood. Looking back, it was a superpower. Early divorce, no money, dirt poor. My father was an alcoholic, drank till I was 15. So lots of chaos there. Massive student loan debt for a career I did not pursue, and I didn't have any business building experience, but I was super motivated to achieve and to grow. And so again, the warning here is there's nothing to buy. We're not selling leads. We're not doing any of that stuff. It's not a sales pitch. And there will be some of you that want more information, and we'll talk about that. So here's the crazy thing. Less than 1% of real estate agents sold 25 homes or more in the last 12 months. So the industry itself is not going to help you make an unfair share of money in a reasonable amount of time. And so no one's coming to save you. Entire MLSs and real estate boards and brokerages would go out of business if it only allowed agents that were selling 25 homes or more, right? And that's stage 2 of the 4 stages that we'll go through today. And my only ask of you at this point, and let me pull up the chat because we cannot continue until everyone says all in the chat. So go to the chat and tell me if you are all in. Let me get a bunch of all-ins. I can't even see the chats, Ken. So you have to.
I got it. Yeah, they're coming in. We've got a.
You have to make sure we have 21 of them. So I see 21 people on here. So everyone has to be all in before we continue, because I'm giving you everything today, all the goods. All right. So everyone's all in. And guys, I will say this. I'm going to get tactical. I'll probably spend 20% on mindset today, 80% on tactics or some version of that. But this game of business and succeeding at a level that is massively uncommon is probably 80-20 reversed, 80% mindset and 20% tactics. I promise you that. Hard to feel that if you're struggling for your next commission check, and we'll get into the weeds, but that's why I'm starting with mindset, because I've got to drill this into your head. Step one is to think like a business owner. And some of you should be taking screenshots with your phone of some of these slides, because it's not going to take more than a couple or three things for you to shift something massively and go on an entire, like my goal here today is to help some of you really take a different direction with your business as a result of what we go through. So think like a business owner when it comes to leverage growth. Most agents aren't stuck because of effort. They're stuck because they're still thinking like operators and not owners. And the first book that I read when I got into real estate was E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Gave me no tactics at all. It didn't teach me anything about implementing anything about systems or whatever. But this question, this is the E-Myth question. How would you have to think about your business differently if you were to replicate it 10,000 times? And to some of you that this is where I'm going to lose you, and I promise just hang in there. The reason why you're looking for a paid lead source, or you only sold 8 homes last year, or it's because you're not thinking about setting up systems in your business that could run independent of you. And so if you were to set up 10,000 of your existing business today, it's an impossibility, right? But if you set up systems around lead gen, your database, your digital footprint, social media, your social proof, your client care systems, those are the 4 key lead gen levers that we'll go through today. It's game over, because then anyone can run those systems and you can kind of, automate and delegate some of the work. Not going to spend a lot of time talking about my dad, but he was the ultimate E-Myth. He was a sole, ranger, lone ranger in his business. He was doing the color and the hair cutting and washing hair and sweeping the floor and taking out the trash and working 70 hours a week, and really had nothing to show for it. So complete poverty. I was headed down that path, right? I was working 70, 80 hours a week when I sold 44 homes my first year, 58 my second year. I can't see you, but everyone, please raise your hand if you have ruined a family vacation, or at least worked a deal and pissed off your spouse on family vacation. All right, I see Ken. Let me see if I can make this bigger so I can. No, I can't see anyone else. Crap it. All right. So surely there are a bunch of other people raising their hands. Yeah. So this was at the time, I'm like, why are you taking a picture of me? Like, I know I'm pissing you off. And this is a deal that fell apart, ironically, in the neighborhood I live in now. Only time ever I sought compensation to release a buyer from a buyer agency agreement. This guy pissed me off so much. We were on top of a mountain. I had no reception. I had to drive down to the bottom of the mountain every time I wanted to talk to this buyer. Ended up pulling out of the deal. And he would have quadrupled his investment if he bought the property that I had him under contract on. So he did. All right. So to wrap up your mindset here. So like I said, thinking long game in your business is going to be a challenge for some of you, but beginning with the end in mind is the journey. Like I don't care where you're at today. If you sold 8 homes last year and you need to get to 24 to 36, which is the promise of the work that we're going to do here today, you have to say, okay, in 2027, I will close 24 homes. I closed 8 last year. I'm going to close 24. That's a tripling of my business in 2 years. And then you begin to work backwards on what you need to do to make it happen. And I'm going to give you some tangible, tactical stuff that you can do. But you have to think that way. Same thing in your marriage. If your marriage is off the rails, same thing in your physical body. If you gained 100 pounds over the last decade, right? You're not going to, in the next 90 days, lose 100 pounds and all of a sudden change your identity in your physical body. It's going to take some time to have that happen. So you got to think long game. And how are you thinking about your business? Do you even think about your business as a business? And a business is simply a system of systems, right? The traditional real estate agent does every little thing in their business and they have no leverage whatsoever. They have no sequences in terms of technology running anything. There's no automations. There's no delegations. There's no process for prioritizing, working in the business versus on the business. And I mentioned it, success in anything really is about mindset, 80%. And it comes down to believing that it's possible. All I needed to see when I got into business was Give me a few examples of guys that seem to have it together in their personal lives and are selling hundreds and hundreds of homes. And I'm like, okay, well then I can definitely do that. If somebody else did it, I could do it. And then get the emotional leverage. I had forever, I still have it on that desk back there, a picture of my kids when they were little. And that was enough to get my ass out of bed to sit in a desk and do the work that I didn't feel like doing on the daily so I could get the results that I knew I wanted to get. All right. So that's one. That's in the clouds. Two is still in the clouds. So hang with me. Step two, adapt your approach given the rapidly changing business climate. So your ability to scale your business. Scale is different than growth. So scale is getting into a level of production that is more than you could do on your own. Growing is going from 8 deals to 16 deals. Scaling is going from 8 to 36 to 48, right? So it's more than you could do on your own. You need systems, you need automations, you need delegations. So your ability to scale your business is directly correlated to your ability to serve people at the highest level. I believe this is the widest and deepest moat you can build around your business, is your ability just to care for your clients and let them find your next deal for you. And we call that client care compound effect. And I'll go through that here in a little bit. But there's a really good book, and I don't know that this quote comes from The Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk. I checked out of Gary V's world for a long time. He's just real brash and real, I don't know, drops a lot of curses. I've adapted some of that a little bit. I use the word shit too much now, maybe because of Gary V, but his approach in business. And if you're not following him, I think it's a helpful person to have in your world. But his whole thing in Thank You Economy is running your business, unless you're going to be the person, owning a data center that's processing AI and has AI chips coming in, and you have to turn into like the 1950s way of doing business. So local service businesses, their only way to survive in this next shift of tech and AI and all of that is to go back to just extreme care over clients and creating an experience that your clients just could not think is possible. And, whether it's changing consumer patterns, which is rapidly evolving, the shift away from search even to ChatGPT is crazy in terms of evolving technology. Our industry just went through, radical change in the States here with the buyer agency and all that. And then you just have the market, right now in the States anyway, right now we're like 36 months into a unit recession. So there's just not enough income available. And this is the question. And for most of us, we don't think about our business this way, but to think about your business in terms of your ability to scale based solely on the way you treat people. What if the only way to get a next piece of business is to treat your existing client, the one that's right in front of you, that buyer or seller, treat them in such a way that that's the only avenue to your next piece of business? And this is the question we answered like 15 years ago, and we refined we call it client care compound effect now. It's just basically a process by which we treat a buyer and seller when they come into our world, when they go under contract, and when they close, and then beyond. So without having to beg for it, the byproduct of them working with us is more than one closing is the goal from every closing. So it's just a total mindset shift. This, definitely take a picture of this. Agents obsess over the left side. Raise your hand if you obsess over give me the next lead, give me the next lead, give me the next lead. That's not the game. I'll go into a stat here in a minute that'll blow your mind about just how we're being taken advantage of on paid lead side. But yeah, you've got to have people reaching out to you. My game, and we continue to teach this, is we want people reaching out to us. It's way easier, and it's not just your database, it's your digital footprint, and it's social proof, and it's a lot of stuff that we implement in businesses we work with. But you've got to be able to have warm as possible stuff coming in. Then you have conversations, you set appointments, you do the normal stuff, you get them closed. But to do this in a way where the right side takes care of your business. Monumental business shift. For me, it was the first time I went on a Disney cruise. We went on 5 total. My kids are too old at this point. It's very sad. But this family, that's not my family, where my wife is the head on the bottom, and then my kids are the upper right, and then the one right next to my head there. Everyone with brown hair is one of my good friends. We were on a guys trip, and I said, we were talking about spring break or something. I said, have you guys ever been on a Disney cruise? Like, no, we've never. We hate cruises. It's the worst thing ever. And I said, you have to come on a Disney cruise. They already had a vacation plan for their spring break on a completely different week than my kids' vacation. I convinced this guy to take his kids out of school and go on a Disney cruise with my family. Right? That is the goal of working with someone. They get an experience working with you. And guys, it could have nothing to do with real estate. This is where any business can get from, because real estate, honestly, when you're doing it at a high level, it sucks. There are parts of it that, like, you get the miserable piece of all your clients and you judge yourself about of that every day. It's not very, very good. But you start to integrate, like, how can I just blow the minds of my clients on a regular basis with just surprise and delight and just wowing them. And there's so many good resources on just doing this. Not only will you benefit financially because you'll get transactions as a result of just doing that, but it makes the business fun again. And it's the ultimate trump to anyone ever treating you like shit, which happens a lot in real estate. So it's just a rethinking of your funnel, right? So the funnel is less about obsessing over, like, where's the next paid lead source, and it's more about, you know, how can I serve my clients in a way where they'll get they'll bring the next piece of business. And then you just got to get clear on what makes you different. You know, we are a dime a dozen in every market. There's way too many agents, and so you need to depart from the norm and respond in such a way where your business is going to grow regardless of what's happening in the market. So in terms of shifting your approach, this is where it gets really fun. Anytime you, and the downside is that you realize that most companies have not cracked the code on this, but study other companies that are leading with service. Really fun. And these are things that don't cost a lot of money. And then audit your database touch system. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of that in a little bit. Your digital footprint, your client care process, right? What can you implement into how you treat people that are in your world, so that the natural byproduct, without you having to, you know, pick up the phone and beg for referrals, the natural byproduct is business coming to you. And then we would solicit feedback from our clients 4 times in the transaction. So you should ask your clients at every pivotal point in the transaction, you know, hey, we made a big promise when we started working together. You know, how am I doing on that promise? Now, you guys really dropped the ball, you know, when this happened. And then you just tighten up the process. It allows you to tighten up the process. And then the social proof system, I'll get to that here in a second, but you definitely need a social proof system in place. So step number 3 is to fill your pipeline with warm, organic, inbound leads that actually convert. This is where I really diverted from, you know, I dabbled with paid leads in the beginning, and not even, like, we were selling hundreds and hundreds of homes per year. And I maybe spent the most on paid leads was $5,000 a month, just testing if I can get a better return on that versus anything else. And I wasn't able to. So we actually got out of all paid leads and continued to sell a ton of homes. So marketing is hands down the biggest leverage point in your business. And in order to have true freedom, this is the decision you need to make. There is some sweat equity you will need to put in your business. If you've been addicted to the next lead source, there's some sweat equity you will have to put into building this, but it will give you the freedom that you're after. But it requires that you build lead gen levers. That's what we call them, lead generation levers that do the heavy lifting for you. And I kind of look at it this way. Some of you are probably from up north. You probably have, like, you guys have a lot of oil up there, right? So there's these, like, you know, a lot of work to drill down, like, I don't know, like miles into the earth and find this, like, oil. And then, you know, there's a massive investment to set up an oil rig, but then that thing can run for years with a little bit of tweaking and maintenance, and it's throwing out, you know, money consistently. That's the way I want you to view your lead gen levers. So ask yourself the question, am I truly using marketing as leverage and building lead gen levers that can run without me? Here is the stat I need you guys to know. 4 million, this is in just the US, but the stats would hold true throughout North America. 4 million closings last 12 months, 8 million commission checks. Let's assume that 2 commission checks were paid per closing. 1 billion leads. 1 billion leads were sold to agents that collected 8 million commission checks. If every one of the 8 million came from a paid lead, it's 125-to-1 ratio. 125 leads per commission check. I would argue that less than a quarter, but let's say a quarter of the 8 million commission checks came from paid leads. That is a 500-to-1 ratio. So I don't care what you do in your business to generate business, but don't think that paying for a lead is the answer. And granted, there are some lead sources that are better than others, and there are some people that can get realtor.com to work, and I get it. And I know people getting paid leads to work, but it's usually not leading to any freedom whatsoever. So those folks are not crushing it on those lead sources, and there's not time freedom. If you've like mastered realtor.com and you're selling 30 homes per year on realtor.com, your bank accounts typically aren't overflowing, and you're working every evening and weekend. So you're bankrupt, so to speak, but you're hitting numbers, but you're still bankrupt, right? So you're a hostage. And the goal here in social proof is just to switch the script and start telling the story of your clients. There was an article titled this, you might Google it, Social Proof is Everything in Marketing. And the power of social proof, this story, I'm going to tell a short version of it. But hopefully if you're not focusing on social proof, this will pivot it all for you. Valentine Dentistry, true story. These 3 owners were on the radio. I did a little bit of radio back when it worked, and it quickly didn't work. But they were on the radio. I was on the radio. So I knew these guys. I relocated into their market. So I went to their office to change dentists. This was a different business. You can tell from the moment I stepped in, the tour that I got, I was introduced to all the different departments, and like, it was just a different experience altogether. Got my cleaning, my x-rays, new client. On checkout, lady pointed to her phone and she said, "Have you given us a 5-star review yet?" I said, I mean, I haven't. That's what I wanted to say to her. Like, I'm a new client. She said, "Did you have a 5-star experience today?" I said, "Yes, I did." She said, "Pull out your phone, pull up a browser, do this, do this." Within like 1 minute, I left a 5-star review for this business. And at the time, this was a while ago, they're at 1,500 reviews. I went right back to our real estate team. I mean, my real estate business was right across the street, and we were only at like 40 or 50 reviews at the time, Google reviews, because it just wasn't a focus of ours. And when I searched up on Google, like, are you the best agent in your market? At the time, we weren't even on the radar, but High Performance Real Estate Advisors, I since divested this business. I sold it. We're over 3,000 reviews now. So we went from 40, and this is probably maybe 7-8 years ago, where you kind of would be crazy not to at least interview, the real estate business. I like it better when it's not a team. Honestly, I like it better when it's, even if there were 1,000 reviews, I would much rather see an individual agent name, but that's just the way the business is set up, because the existing owner doesn't do production the same way that I didn't. But you have to focus on having a footprint in terms of people saying good things about you. The guy that I sold this business to recently reached out to me and thanked me. We had 500 reviews on Zillow at the time we pivoted 100% away from Zillow. And he thanked me recently. He's like, "We get business like coming in regularly, organically from Google." He thanked me for getting out of the racket of Zillow. Most agents are like, "No, I'm going to pay for Zillow zip codes and Flex or whatever crap." And it's not sustainable. All right. In terms of shifting your market, please understand that whatever you do, and we're getting in the dirt here in a second on lead gen levers, but you have to exit the third-party system. Paying someone else to be a better marketer than you is not a viable and sustainable approach. It's not going to work. So there are 4 systems you must build out in your business. Each of these are good for multiple transactions per month. So when I started this, I almost titled it "How to Sell 2 or 3, homes per month without paid leads or cold calling." But each of these are good for multiple transactions per month. And if you go deep on these 4 systems, database touch system, brand authority builder, social proof, and client care compound effect, you'll be able to hit 6 to 8 deals per month over time. It may take you 2 to 3 years to get there, but within 2 to 3 months, within 3 to 6 months, you'll get to 2 to 3 deals per month, right? But you've got to focus on building your own lead gen levers and not looking for the next best paid lead source. And then use social media strategically in your business, but don't make it about real estate and don't be a me monster. Does anyone like cringe, the first, second week of January when everyone is online, where they're just like, it's like a picture of them and it's like, thank you to the 127, like I'm number one, I'm this, I'm that. And naturally real estate agents are generally, like it's about me, because we're salespeople and we're stupid enough to, go kill dragons all day long. But make sure your social media is value added and engageable. They already know you're in real estate, so you don't gotta, announce every under contract, every just listed. Like nobody likes that stuff. It's just stupid. And then build a world-class service experience. You do that one part right and it's game over. And that's the part that agents barely get through. Barely, no agent has an actual checklist. And now you can just go in ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm an agent in, Charlotte, North Carolina, list out like your strengths and weaknesses and say, hey, put me together a checklist on how I can, under $250, how I can deliver a world-class experience to a buyer client. And it'll be like, okay, that one's stupid, refine it. And in like less than 5 minutes, you can have a buyer client care, world-class client care system built out and a seller. And that'll become your next lead gen lever. All right, I got to hustle here. Step 4, how much time we got, Ken? Full hour?
Yeah, we have a full hour. So I was going to try and do questions at the end. If we've got them, I've got a few for you. So
yeah, awesome. All right, so step 4. So this is, when you do this right, I promise you, you're going to get busy. You have to stick to the basics that we lay out long enough so that they work. They still will work. This is the only way I would teach business going forward, but it doesn't require that you take on more hours as your business scales. So step 4 is to bust the myth that you must put in more hours to make more money. And here is the no shame, no blame, and I'm sure there are extenuating circumstances, but the income that you've been making in real estate is simply the result of the choices you've made with where you spent your time. And that goes for your bank account as well. Granted, there are like 1 or 2 out of 100 people that have like crazy circumstances that were literally out of their control. This is one of those extreme ownership type things. You're chasing something different every 90 days. Those are decisions that you're making. Do not blame the company that is selling you those shitty leads. You're making the decision. Now you know better because I've told you, and I've worked with so many freaking agents, but you've got to break that cycle, right? So let's go through this. This is important. What are the most dollar productive activities in a real estate business? There are 5. There are easily over 100 things you will do. If I followed you around for a month, so you can have full cycle on a buyer, full cycle on a listing and a seller that's sold, however long that would take in your business. And I wrote down everything that you did, it would be over 100 things. There are only 5 that make you money. I'm talking serious money. I'm talking like hundreds of dollars per hour. And they are PLANS. Write that down. Prospecting, that's finding new business. I don't love the word prospecting, but it works good in the acronym. L is lead follow-up. So 90% of the people you have a first conversation with are not ready to go. So it's your email nurtures, it's your text sequences, it's your phone call reminders in your CRM. A is appointments. So not appointments with existing clients, but appointments to sign a new buyer client and sign a new seller client. So buyer consultations, listing consultations. N is negotiate, not appraisals, not inspections. Negotiate a buyer under contract or a seller under contract. And then S are building systems. 1 out of 1,000 agents do S. So this is the real superpower, is your ability to have systems, time blocks in your calendar. But then knowing that those 5 activities are the only money-making activities, are you spending anywhere close to 80% of your time doing those 5 activities? We have a, and you can, we'll figure out a way to reach out and get it. I have a 2-week time study that I take coaching clients through, and you'll hate Ken and I for putting you through this, but
it is painful.
It is massively painful, but it will reveal real quick, why you're not making the kind of money that you want. So you just got to be honest with yourself. If you're not spending 80% of your time doing those things, why not? And it's true. There's only so much time in the day, right? But plenty of examples of guys and girls that are making, millions and millions of dollars per year in the same calendar, that we're given. There are a lot of demands. If you're married, if you have kids, if you're trying to get a workout in, if you're trying to spend some time with your creator and you're running a business, let alone if you're maybe scaling a team or trying to flip a home or, have side hustles or businesses, it's a crazy time. And naturally, our personalities are easily distractible. So entrepreneurial ADD is a real thing. It's you're wanting to look over here for the answer or look over here for the answer. And we're less inclined to sit still and work on things that we know are the answers to our business. So it's like an organized chaos, chickens with our heads cut off all the time. This next concept, and this one number changed everything for me. It's called the Business Freedom Index. Take a picture of this equation because this could change the entire game for you. My first 10 months in the business, I sold 27 homes. I took home $37,000 and I worked probably about 2,000 hours in those 10 months. Wasted a lot of money. I made $18.50 an hour, made less than $20 an hour. I went from less than $20 an hour. I decided, so that was my number. That was my current number when I learned this concept. It wasn't called Business Freedom Index back then, but I decided I wanted it to be $500,000 take home. And I wanted to work 40 hours a week or 2,000 hours a year. That's $250 per hour. Everything changed for me at that point. I was at 20 and I wanted to 12.5x my productivity. That dollar per hour calculation, Business Freedom Index, right? So I just couldn't, manually do things. So I knew I had to build systems or get a runner to install signs or lock boxes or run a check from the attorney to whatever, right? Or even show homes or, put listing remarks in MLS. There's so many things I needed to do to shift my productivity. But it was this constantly thinking in terms of my highest and best use of my time. And this could be even a simple daily process, not even a 2-week time study. Looking back every day and just grading yourself 1 to 5. Did I really invest my time wisely today on only the 5 things that I can make real money on? PLANS, right? Highly recommend you calculate where you are currently in terms of your Business Freedom Index and where do you want to get to. And that gap is going to drive you there and to make some of these decisions. New business development is the single most important thing you can do. That's the P and the L, prospecting and lead follow-up. Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, is like if you've got a frog to eat and it's sitting on your desk, eat it first thing in the morning. That thing's going to be looking at you all day and it's not going to look any prettier late in the day. That's generating new business and following up with folks that weren't quite ready. And then distractions, right? It's unlikely that there is a pot of gold inside of your phone in the doom scroll or whatever thing you get involved in. If you're a guy and you're spending a lot of time on sports and fantasy leagues and whatever, right? It's this never ending, pit of distraction. And then there will be a season where you need to double down and work as the real estate player, the real estate coach, and then the real estate owner. You're playing multiple roles. And so negotiate that with your spouse and give them an idea of where you're going in the next 1, 2, and 3 years so that they can commit to the time that you'll be working on your business. All right, step 5, and this is where we're getting super tactical. And then I need like a dozen questions so we can get some really good questions here. So this is strategically implementing tools, systems, and technology to scale your business. So having done this for a very long time, and again, Ken and I don't charge for any of this at this point, but not only is it possible to scale your business without losing your life, but it's 100% predictable if you have a clear roadmap in place. And I like to ask the question this way. So 3 years ago, so you're here today, 3 years ago, when you set your 3-year vision, which maybe you didn't, but based on where you are today and the system that you've been using, how confident are you in terms of where you're going? Like just scale of 1 to 5. Like, are you crushing it? 3 years ago, you said, yeah, I wanted to get to 50 sides per year, working 40 hours per week, and, have $1 million liquid net worth, and you absolutely achieved it. Or are you just not where you want to be? You're insecure about where to spend your time. Maybe you're working too many hours. Maybe your marriage is struggling, like all the things, right? So we just have to be honest with ourselves and just to know that there is a path to freedom. We're only going to go through one aspect of what Ken and I are working on together is Agent Freedom OS, and it's not working about it's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. And Production OS is basically what my coaching program, $1 Million Agent Method. I used to charge $10,000 for 90 days and then $1,800 per month. That's how Ken and I met. I don't know how much money Ken has paid me in a prior life, but it was not cheap to get access to this stuff. We won't go through Attraction OS or Freedom OS, but this is the ability to grow without the grind. And the immediate promise here is to add 2 to 3 closings per month. This is the promise when I took $10,000 US, $9,800 to be exact, from a client coming in a 90-day period. It was to help them install the lead gen levers for specifically inside of 90 days so that they can close 2 to 3 homes per month that they wouldn't have done otherwise without paying for leads or cold calling or any of that stuff. So take a picture of this screen. I'm not going to go through all of it. These are the 4 pillars that you have to implement in your business in order to scale it to 2 to 3, or, there's a guy that sold 1,000 homes last year using these systems. It doesn't matter what level you want to go to. This is the blueprint. So in leveraged lead gen, that's where 99% of agents are really massively struggling. That's where we talk about database touch blueprint, agent brand authority builder. That's your digital footprint. And then we have 8 other lead gen levers that you can pick and choose from. And then all I'll say about the appointment setting process, it's not as much about that initial conversation with someone or someone that you don't know. It's about the 90% that need to be nurtured and warmed up. So when they're ready to work with you, they're going to be pre-sold on working with you. And the focus is picking at least a portion of your calendar or your margin in your mind to think a little bit more like a business builder. Systems are the ultimate form of leverage. And there is not a get rich quick scheme in any business, right? We had a mastermind, Ken and I, on Monday, and we were talking about this. We were talking like all the ways to make money. There's time, there's effort, there's skill, there's will, and then there's hopefully a balance between like living a rich life and having relationships that you can invest time into and not be freaking stressed all the time. And there's just so many ways. We were talking about like franchise opportunity. We're talking about agent attraction, which is something Ken and I work on together. We're talking about real estate and the challenges there and the burnout there. But this approach works, the one that we teach agents. And the goal is to generate organic inbound leads. That's the only way to allow for sustainable growth. And that's the opportunity. Inbound lead gen and have a conversion system in place so that there is not a feast and famine cycle, right? Lead generation is the entire business, really in any business. And without a consistent flow of inbound organic leads, there are no deals. There's massive insecurity and there will be no freedom. The challenge is, as I mentioned, is that there are a bunch of sharks out there selling us 1 billion leads at a 500 to 1 close ratio. And they're cold and super hard to convert. In a perfect world, you've got all these warm inbound leads coming in. You're out of the third-party lead system. You're in full control of your business, and you can scale your income. Take a screenshot of this, a little camera picture of this. This is the game. So there are more people that don't know you than know you. But once you get people to know you and you have the proper database touch blueprint set up, I'm not talking about like all the real estate crap and the spring cleaning tips. I'm talking about truly just really good, engageable, value-added content that you're putting out to your database, and then brand authority builder is your digital footprint. That includes social proof, right? And then the underlying part of this is that all this is attraction-based. None of it is paid leads or cold calling. And then you've got a bunch of different ways that you can generate business. We have 8 other lead gen levers, and they're all cold. And the whole point is to take people that don't know you, but they are more likely to sell or buy, and then just get them into the world where they know you. And 90% of them aren't going to be ready to transaction. We've got the nurture sequences in place. So number one, I think I mentioned this the other day to Ken. Had a guy reach out to me. This was in our paid program, but it's the same stuff that works today. He, at the end of November 2025, he closed his 900th transaction of the year, just passed over 10 million GCI US, and 60% of his business was from database and digital footprint.
That's huge.
But yeah, before his wife joined his team, he sold 13 homes. So it's not like he all of a sudden, and most of you are like, there's no way I ever want to sell 1,000 homes per year. I want to sell 50 homes a year is like my dream. It's the same stuff, right? You're starting wherever you're starting. And this is the most defensible way you can set up your business. And it's the only asset in your business is a structured database of contacts. And most agents just aren't in the game. There's just complete mismanagement here. A properly set up database with value-added content will convert at 10 to 15%. So if you're starting at nothing and you can, every Monday through Friday, you can manage every day to put 10 contacts together and then execute our touch system, there's a deal for every 10 contacts in your database. No joke, right? But you have to know what to send, when to send it, and how to drive these contacts into conversions. And then you've got to have all the templates and the whole process. Digital footprint, most agents are just like, either you're putting crap online that nobody cares about and you're in the game at least, which is better than not doing it. Or you're more like me and I look at agents doing stuff where I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go inside a listing and dance. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like the dancing realtor, right? There's like one agent that has like 1 million followers that does that. It's just not going to happen. But if you have 250 people in your database and you run a touch system, there's 30 to 40 deals there. You can get a 10x multiple in terms of people that know, like, and trust you, quote unquote, in terms of like online. So the 250 becomes 2,500. And this is multiple deals per month, right? But you have to execute a very simple daily process, a thoughtful, engageable post daily, and then what we call a 5-5-5, which is reaching out to 5 contacts on social. So usually like an audio message or a DM, and just engaging with people that you know online. Then commenting on 5 posts. And then I forget what the other 5 is. I think it's like friending 5 new people or something like that.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, it takes about 15 or 20 minutes per day. And we have members doing not only 2 to 3 closings per month using just this one sort of tactic, this daily post. It has to be the right stuff, and then the 5-5-5. I've got members doing 100+ deals per year off of just our digital footprint. And then client care compound effect. Even if you never come into our world and you just get all of this swipe and deploy, you have to figure out a way to make your buyer and seller clients feel like, compared to any other experience they've gotten in any other industry, a restaurant, a hotel, or whatever, they have to be like, this is unbelievable what just happened in this transaction. So put into full effect, this is what the $1 million agent method looks like in practice. And this is like what we would work on if we ever had the chance to work on together any of this together. It's inbound organic leads that are generating, and it's all attraction-based marketing. It's all your nurture sequences running on autopilot. That's the 90% that aren't ready to go. And then those lead nurture systems serve up qualified prospects, and they're pre-sold on working with you. And then you've got consultation frameworks that are like next level in terms of how you present your services. And once they come into your world, you have a systems-driven approach to client care, and that drives referrals without you begging for it. And then hopefully your brokerage provides a tech and marketing stack. Ours does, and it's free, that does all of the heavy lifting for you. And this is good for any of the 4 stages to get to $1 million GCI, whether you're in survival mode, you're under 100K, or your hustle, 10 to 25 deals or 10 to 20 deals per year, or you want to get to 20 to 40 or 50, or you want to get into the $1 million GCI range. It's the same game. So the whole point here is to put you in a position where your lead gen system runs like clockwork. So leads are coming in no matter what you're doing. You're out of the third-party system, and you just have that peace of mind. So last part here in terms of the approach, and I mentioned this earlier, I didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the 3-year vision is key. Like, so where do you want to be 3 years from now in your business, in your finances, in your marriage, in your physical body? Break that down into a 1-year plan. Where do you want to be a year from now in each of those areas? Then in this first quarter of this year, what must you focus on to be able to knock out that 1-year plan? And then in the weekly, are you doing the things you need to do in the areas of life and business that you've set these goals in to move the needle? And it's likely going to take cutting out a lot of crap that isn't aligned with where your goals are. And then make sure, PLANS, make sure you have business building time blocks, systems. Make sure you have business building time blocks, as important, I would argue even more important than new business development. And then you're going to have some times where you're just scared as shit, so whatever faith looks like for you, choose that over fear, because you will get out of your comfort zone at every stage of this journey. But really the key, I would say, is regardless of if you're aligned in the future with Ken and I, and there's no charge for it, or you choose to do this on your own, you want to be doing this with someone that's done it ahead of you. There's just a better way to do it, and there's no heavy pitch here. But we have a collective of agents that are plugging into all these systems that I used to charge $30,000 a year for. Do not reach out to me for any of this stuff. Ken and I are business partners. You can reach out directly to Ken. He's running these monthly webinars just to give as much value as possible. And I don't charge for any of this stuff anymore. So I literally shut down. I was doing about $175,000 US per month last year in 2025. And I shut that down completely to bring all of that into what I formed was Agent Freedom Collective. And now Ken and I have been partnered for, I think, about 4 years now. But now this is all completely free and it's new. So I would say if you definitely want to not, do things the way the rest of the industry does them in terms of like making an unreasonable amount of money in a reasonable amount of time. And even just from a mindset perspective, that you need to build systems into your business. You don't need to know how, because we've got that covered. But if you can follow a proven process, and please, dear Lord, resist the temptation for the quick fixes, the lead sources that come in hot and they sound great, those shiny object syndrome that we all suffer from. You have to be able to at least want to add 2 to 3 transactions per month. Or you may be a team leader and your agents are struggling, or there may be a broker owner on this call where your agents, like, I can't even imagine what that world is like right now, and your agents are struggling. So this is a fix for everyone. And then just ask for help when you're stuck and be coachable. That's the only requirement. So that's all I've got.
Cool. Okay. Well, that was awesome, Lars. And thank you so much for bringing that to us. Now I want to open this up to questions. So anybody that wants to ask a question, let's put them in the chat. So just send me a message, and then we're going to go through each question as they come up, and we'll try and get through these as fast as we can. I'm going to start. I got a couple of questions for you. So one thing that I've noticed, the way that we communicate now, like Lars had me on Voxer back in the day to do voice notes and that kind of stuff and do a lot more of that. Now, every time I communicate with Lars, we're using essentially voice notes. So talk to me about how is that for communicating with clients? Are you finding that effective, like a video text, or is it as effective? Or, talk to me about that using voice notes.
Yeah. So I think a text and email, so the written word, I think it works in some situations, but not in anything that has any emotion attached to it. So if you're like, even talking to another agent and you're in a negotiation, it's so easy to want to just text that person versus, if you only have 2 minutes and you can't call them and you're walking into a showing, pull up a video and just say, hey, Ken, it's Lars. I know we've got some stuff we've got to nail down on this transaction. This is the biggest sticking point. I'm running into a showing. Like, that's going to come off way different than a quick text. Be like, you know what I mean? So anywhere you could use video, highly preferred. And then also audio. And this goes with like the coldest of leads. It's hard on the billion to, that 500 to 1 ratio. You'd spin your wheels. If you're committed to realtor.com, you have to use like personal, like the stuff that doesn't scale is the only way to get that asset, to produce. But yeah, anything, going back to what Gary Vee said and acting like you're in the 1950s in business, in local service businesses, is the only way to make sure you're going to stay in business.
Yeah, it's do the work. The work works. It really does.
Yeah.
So you and I have the same philosophy on social media, like the dancing realtors out there. I can't deal with that at all. But when we're talking about social content, especially for realtors, we have realtors on our team and in our world that are just starting down this social journey and are now just shifting their mindset that your social media page is not a page for you personally anymore. This is a business page. Your personal social media pages are now your business building pages, and you have to have that mindset. But when we're talking about that balance of content or what to post or the cadence of that, what is your philosophy on that? What are you posting? What would you suggest they post?
Yeah,
where would those people get started?
Yeah, and this is where, if you guys are not using ChatGPT, choose one AI tool. I got overwhelmed at a certain point. I was trying to learn like which one is the best, and like people like Grok or Gemini, or I chose ChatGPT, and I have every area of my business in my life in a project in ChatGPT. So like, you cannot argue at this point that you're struggling to come up with ideas. So what I would do, and I have specific ideas, but what I would do is create a project in ChatGPT and prepare ChatGPT to act a certain way. So it's like, hey, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. There are still 22,000 agents for, like 1/10 of the amount of homes. I can't stand the agents that dance on TikTok to try to get business, or flaunt themselves in a way that I can't, or I'm more spreadsheet oriented or whatever. Give ChatGPT some content and say, I want to post every day. I want to post something that draws people to me, but it's not all about real estate. And these are my interests. I'm really into my fitness right now. I've lost 40 pounds in the last 2 years. I'm 52 years old. I'm a believer. So there's a faith component. We are just about to be empty. This is me. We're just about to be empty nesters. We're downsizing as a result of that. I'm reworking my finances to have a simpler financial picture because my father-in-law just passed away. Feed it a bunch of stuff. It's going to tell you exactly what to do. So that's like what I would say. Like, you can't run out of ideas at this point. And you can even come at it worse than that and say, ChatGPT, it's sad to say, I don't even know where to start with this right now. I'm a real estate agent and I'm 67 years old and I struggle with technology and I want to put out one piece of content a day. Can you ask me 10 questions that would help me to get started, to expand my digital footprint and become an authority online? And it's going to ask you questions. So there's like, depending on where you are at some point that project is going to know so much about you. It's going to put stuff out and you're like, number one was an awful idea. I would never do that. I have no interest in like a pub crawl, and like, I don't even drink, so it's like, okay, so it's going to adapt to you, but it's like, pick 5 areas. So this is like the direct advice, not ChatGPT AI driven. Pick 5 areas. One is business, and the other are other things that are more important to you or important to you. So for me, it would be family, fitness, faith, finances. I love finance, crypto, markets, macro, politics aside, every day is exciting. And then business. So real estate. And even the real estate though. So every 5 days you're posting something different. And you could even do it 7 days and have every day themed, and then you're just coming up with an idea. So in my fitness, it's like last night I worked out at 9 p.m. I did not feel like it, but I committed to 3 workouts. Where are you guys struggling right now? Like, bring like an actual authentic self into social media. And nobody's doing that still. There are some people doing it, but you can tell they're doing it because they think they should do it, versus like, hey, is anyone else struggling to get back on the wagon with their health? Or, last week I drank, on average of a bottle of wine every night. And I find that I'm just self-medicating and I want to get out of it. Does anyone have any of that is going on? There was a story. This is a good lesson. Man, I wish I could remember her name. But it was a single mom, a poor single mom that got into real estate. In 3 years, she sold 200 homes. She documented the journey of being in real estate and being poor and knowing nothing. And within no time, because she was willing to bring that into the world, people wanted her to succeed. Versus like the agents that are like, I drive a 1982 car, like I couldn't possibly go on an appointment, and they're trying to play a part. She was like, I'm only going to play me, and people are going to rally to support me. So I think just bring authenticity to it, and I think you'll crush it.
And vulnerability wins. It always does.
100%.
It's the hardest thing to do too. Like if you're not that person, if you're a guarded private person, the hardest thing to do is be vulnerable. But if you can force yourself to do it and grow that tree ring, be comfortable being uncomfortable, it's one of the things that'll cut through on social for sure. We got a couple of questions here. One from Monica. It says, I make calls to my database consistently. I'll send random email templates to them. No rhymes or reason. What do you suggest to have a clean system of sending emails?
Yeah. So in our world, we call this the implementation. So we keep track of all of this in what we call an implementation dashboard. It's pretty simple. Every day you are posting something to a single platform. So that's digital footprint. That's easy. I just covered that. Your database every week. Well, there are a few activities in your database. If it is a shit show and all you have are email addresses and it's in a CRM and you're just sending out like nonsense, and you may need to go backwards and rebuild it from scratch. Because I know that 10 to 15% of a properly built database of people that know, like, and trust me using the touch system that Ken and I have in our businesses, 10 to 15% of that database will transact. So it could be a step back, Monica, to take a step forward. But it's once a week. And even if it's not in your CRM and you're just sending an email to yourself in a blind carbon copy to all the, in this spreadsheet that you're starting from scratch, it's like, what could you send this week that's going to bring engagement and have people see you as someone that that you're either bringing them up, you're motivating them, or you're being honest about where you're at. We got the best. Well, when we had our team do this, we had them do it. I think it was only monthly. It was monthly. So they would upload their database, but they would basically, it was a monthly item of value, and the agent could decide exactly what they wanted it to be. But we had massive success with this. And agents would say like, okay, I watched this YouTube video that changed my perspective on something. It's a video of the agent, a 2-minute video saying, hey, listen, I was struggling, being consistent in my workouts. I got turned on to this method, and here's an 8-minute video. And I thought it might bless some of you if you're struggling in this area. And that's the video. And then there's a sentence or two with a link to the YouTube video. That's way more valuable than any crap your CRM on an auto buyer or auto pass client, So I wouldn't worry about like the perpetual nature of your database touch blueprint. Just think about like, what value can I provide right now? It could be like, hey, if you're in Canada and like Canada and the US are going to like go at nuclear war, like it could be like making fun of that in a way. Like agents got massive success when I forget what president it was, but when like all the like pop stars down here were saying like, I'm moving to Canada, or like, whatever. And there were like billboards. You could take out a digital billboard on Facebook and say, hey, if you're moving to Canada, or if you're moving out of Canada, or if you're like, whatever, they're just things that you can do that are just fun and engaging.
And you did reference something there about sharing good content to show your own personality. Like if you're struggling to find your own personality online or put that online, share the things that you find entertaining, and share the things that you find inspiring, and share the things that you find educational as well, because it will attract your tribe. You will attract like-minded people because they'll find that stuff exactly the same. You're now the conduit to the content. You're not necessarily creating it. So that is one way as well.
And Monica, if you have a shit show of a day and you don't have it quite all figured out, but let's say you ended the day in a glass of wine. I said, maybe alcohol is not a good thing, but take a picture of the glass of wine and list out how much of a shit show your day was. And here's to all the others in my world that had a shit show of a week, or whatever that looks like. Or the moment of silence in the morning before the kids are up or the spouse is up, where it's your cup of coffee in the seat you sit in every morning. And you're saying, hey, my day is going to be unleashed here in a minute. And I just want to take a moment, to capture, what I'm feeling right now. So there could be like, everyone lives in a shit show and nobody admits it. And you have moments of peace where you're like, man, I'm really grateful for being in a business where I can serve others and I can sort of make my own schedule. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's more stuff like that. When I'm online and I just see people taking pictures of being on vacation and like, I'm the top agent and here's a just listed, it's total nonsense, or a spring cleaning tip, or, so look for the things that people are actually going to want to be on your team and help you succeed.
Thanks for that. Got another one here. How do you actually keep your mindset positive, Lars? What's your secret? Because you're a positive guy. Every time I talk to you, I don't think I've ever heard you be negative.
Hold on. Just forgot I had a call.
You got to hop off?
Yeah, I got to hop off in a couple minutes here. Okay. I'm actually jumping on
our last question then. Let's answer this one and we'll be
I'm jumping on with Kirby. So I would say back in the day, I still think while Tony Robbins is still at it, you can pay like $299 US for like 6 of Tony Robbins' like core programs. His Personal Power, his there's a couple others, one on time. It's called Breakthrough. I think it's called Breakthrough. It's $299 US, and it's an app, and you get all of it in PDF and it used to cost like a whole lot of money. Like each program was like $2,000, and each kind of just gives it all away now. I would recommend like basics like that, like it doesn't have to be overly complicated. I would cut out, if you're not where you want to be in your finances and in other areas of your life right now, you probably have to figure out a way to cut out everything that's not feeding you in a positive way. That could be news, that could be social media, it could be deleting apps from your phone. There could be some drastic things that have to happen. And that just takes a little bit of honesty with yourself. But, a daily gratitude practice, I highly recommend. There's a journal called, there's an app too. What's the app? 5-Minute Journal. So there's an app called 5-Minute Journal that I think it's like $5 for the app. Do it for 30 or 60 days and your life will change forever. It's a 5-minute morning practice and a 5-minute evening practice. Your life will not look the same 30 days from now if you just do 5-Minute Journal. That's the only thing you take from here. And I didn't even mention it in the core training. that could change everything for you and anyone that you know as well. And that's a daily post or a weekly item of value. Hey, I just started, and there's a written version too. Hey, I just started using the 5-minute journal. In a week, it has changed my perspective on everything. Every day I'm looking for 3 things I'm grateful for. Every night I'm writing down 3 amazing things that happened today. The psychology that's going on with me right now is I couldn't have imagined it 7 or 14 days ago. If you're struggling with these things, I highly recommend it. All right, party people, I got to run.
Thanks, Lars. We appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for showing up.
Leave your contact information, Ken. Reach out to Ken. Let's be business partners. Bye.
All right, I'll just put my stuff in the chat. And anybody that wants to chat more and get the notes from this and the slides, by all means, just reach out to me at any time. The next webinar in our masterclass series is going to be coming up mid-February. I got a great guest that's going to be talking about how to build a business solely on open houses. And we're talking multiple 6 figures just doing open houses. So that's what's going to be coming up in February. I do appreciate you all being here today. My contact info is now in the chat if you want to copy that down. And I just appreciate you all being here. Thank you.